So let's see what we got here on the play. I would like to keep this. Horribly Awry is actually one of the more important counter spells in the deck. There's 3 copies of them. Now the Gear Hawks, those are late game plays, so here's a Fortified Village. This is interesting. So our opponent's starting on 3 of an Inspector. Maybe it's a green-white tokens deck? We don't see a ton of that deck at the moment, but then again, we only see a few decks typically in the standard format, so this is a different deck. Haven't played against Fortified Village into Thraben Inspector in a minute. So let's see. There's a Heart of Kieran. That's good. Good for our opponent, that is. Not for us, by any means. We can't horribly awry that, so we're just going to let that Heart of Kieran into play. But now we're in a situation where if our opponent just, say, drops a Planeswalker, we would be in bad shape. We can horribly awry the Thalia, though. So exile that, and now the Heart of Kieran cannot be crewed. So we're going to take a damage. Little Gearhawk flooded at the moment, without a ton else going on, which is pretty unfortunate. Sometimes you're okay with having multiple Gearhawks because you have other things to be doing. Unfortunately, that is not the situation that we're in. We're just Gearhawks and lands for the most part. But this is a weird game. Our opponent hasn't done that much either. So maybe they don't have a lot of action or think that we're sitting on counter magic that isn't actually in our hand, which sometimes can happen, by the way, is the opponent just thinks you're on counter magic that is just not there. So either way, we're not getting pressured by the Heart of Kieran. And okay, Harness Lightning. Can maybe do some things with that one. So looks like our opponent's just gonna crack a clue here. And we really don't want to see a Planeswalker like Gideon or Nissa. Just, even though we have 3 negates, disallows, Void Shatter, and Confirmed Suspicions, plenty of counter spells to deal with it, along with Dynavolt Towers. Haven't seen any of those cards. Haven't seen any of our card draw in this game, so pretty unfortunate. We can just run out a Torrential Gearhawk here, which definitely doesn't feel good. I'm going to do it purely because we have 3 of them in our hand. Now, I'm expecting that our opponent has an Archangel Avacyn here, passing with 5 lands available. And there's a Confirmed Suspicions, which is a nice pickup. It's a nice pickup here. So I think I want to send in the Gearhawk. We'll see what our opponent elects to do. It's going to be a Stasis Snare. So we could just confirm Suspicions right here, right now. And I like that play. Just to be able to allow some cards to start coming in. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a Planeswalker to drop here. That definitely could happen. But we do have this Harness Lightning, which can take care of a Heart of Kieran if we want to. So our opponent's probably has 6 cards in hand and is trying to figure out what's going on in the game. So Thraben Inspector is being left on defense. So still thinking maybe our opponent has an Archangel Avacyn. And okay, so this is the opportunity. Our opponent's just going to play the Avacyn, but we can answer that Avacyn with a Harness Lightning. But before doing that, I'm going to attack with the Gearhulk, and our opponent's probably just going to block with Thraben Inspector. So we see that happening. That's going to mean that the Archangel Avacyn would be flipping if it weren't dying, which it is dying. It's dying to the Harness Lightning here. So that's going to mean we use up all of our energy to get rid of this Avacyn. And we now have Gearhulk plus Confirmed Suspicions at the ready. Meaning that we can draw a lot of cards, potentially. So we'll see what our opponent goes for this turn. It's going to be Rishgar. And I'm just going to go ahead and Gearhulk here. I think that it's too good of an opportunity to pass up. Now, hopefully we don't get hit with like a Declaration in Stone. That would be able to get rid of course, both of our Gearhulks. Make things a little bit tougher, but the good thing about this is that we have a bunch of clues. And our opponent isn't doing anything, it looks like. Just a Lambholt Pacifist, so perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I'm just going to send in the boys, the Gearhulks. It looks like our opponent's just going to absorb that hit. And I think we can allow this Lambholt Pacifist to flip. Yeah, I'm just going to pass here, allow the Pacifist to flip. Hold up Gearhulk, hold up Negate as well. So we're just looking to close the game out on the next turn, really. These Gearhulks, hey, we had 3 of them. 3 is good, apparently. And this Gideon is just way too late to the party. Cleanly, we can just negate it. And, okay. So that game was really weird. Hard to make out what our opponent was actually doing there. In any case, it worked out in our favor. So, in terms of sideboarding for the matchup, Natural Obsolescence, basically, as far as I know, there's not too many targets. I guess our opponent does have a version with Heart of Kirin and Thraben Inspectors, and that's pretty typical of green-white tokens. But Release the Gremlins may actually be better than the Natural Obsolescence in this matchup. Incendiary Flow is a card we can go ahead and cut. Shocks are similar. So we want negates for the Planeswalkers. We saw some that game. Just the Gideon, I guess. But normally the deck plays both Nissa and Gideon as well. Shielded Aether Thief doesn't seem like a card we really want. Confiscation Coup doesn't take Planeswalkers. Whirler Virtuoso is an option as well. Maybe we maybe we want a card like Radiant Flames as a kind of catch-all. Incendiary Flow also answers a Lambholt Pacifist, so maybe we want that card on the draw. Sure, I'm going to try this configuration. And this is the type of matchup where at the Pro Tour, I would have expected, the last Pro Tour that is, I would have expected to play against green-white tokens. Now green-white tokens has fallen off the map. Haven't played very much against it at all with this deck. So unclear actually how the matchup is. It seems to be pretty important for the token deck to get a Planeswalker down, which didn't happen in the last game, which was fortunate. So I'm going to hold up the negate in case our opponent does try to play something like a Nissa. Unfortunately, instead, it's going to be a Lambhull Pacifist. That's going to be able to accrue this Heart of Kirin. And while we have this Incendiary Flow to get rid of the Pacifist, still not exactly the spot we were looking for. And there's the third land, so Gideon is still a potential card on the horizon. And this is not what we wanted to anticipate into Glimmer and 2 Gearhulks. So I think the play here is to just jam the Dynavolt Tower. Now it's not optimal by any means. Our opponent could have an artifact removal spell, could have a Planeswalker. But if we're able to untap with this in a safe position, then the game is going to be... we're going to be in a good spot in the game. Now, Rishkar is pretty good here. So this attack is going to bring us all the way down to 8. Ouch. So we can cast a Tune with Aether. So I'm going to do that, but we're actually in a spot where we may just lose on our next turn. So I feel like we do want to cast Incendiary Flow this turn. The question is, which creature do we go after? And I think it's probably this Lambhull Pacifist. We can go after the Pacifist, then finish it off with Dynavolt Tower. That doesn't seem great. But I think we're forced to make the play. Try to survive as best as possible. So next turn, if our opponent doesn't draw anything, you know, we can try to stabilize. But if this is a Gideon or something, then the game's effectively done. And it looks like our opponent's going to think about this one for a moment, but pretty much any threat is going to be good here. Thraben Inspector, and looks like an additional play is on the way. Walking Ballista, Crew Heart, and attack all the way down to 4. So now we're in a spot where if we draw a copy, one of our 2 copies of Release the Gremlins, we could still be in the game. So I'm not going to concede just yet. That is not a Release the Gremlins. So we can Glimmer, kill something, but that's not going to do it. So go to a deciding game. And I don't know that we actually want to change much here. Maybe the Natural Obsolescence we want in addition to the Release the Gremlins, just for Heart of Kirin, and then also there's Walking Ballistas as well. The Horribly Arise are okay, not great in the matchup. So I'm going to board in Natural Obsolescence. I think we can take out a Horribly Awry for sure. And then let's see, besides the Horribly Awry, we could take out an Incendiary Flow. That seems fine. Alright, on the play, no green mana, but I am going to try it. Lots of card draw. So there is setup required. We don't immediately have the counterspells we would like, but we can definitely find them. So, just hoping our opponent doesn't come out of the gates too quickly. If we're able to set up with this hand, we'll be in good shape. Anticipate, then Glimmer. Alright, Thraben, sure. Now we're missing Dynavolt Tower as well. But the Void Shatter is going to give us a way to counter Planeswalkers and just other annoying cards. So we don't want to see Lambholt Pacifist particularly here. Heart of Kirin is more manageable because we already have this Natural Obsolescence. So, well, this actually wasn't what we wanted to see. So Attune, but we don't have the green. There's a Dynavolt Tower. There's a Horribly Awry. So I feel like we want to leave mana up for Void Shadow rather than playing Tower this turn. So I'm actually going to take the Horribly Awry. And just kind of hope to sit on these counterspells for a little bit. And if we draw another land, we can go ahead and have Glimmers and be okay, but we were really hoping to find a land off the Anticipate, and did not. Alright, so now we're actually pretty happy to have taken this Horribly Awry, because we can Horribly Awry the Lambholt. And we still have this Void Shatter available in case of a Planeswalker, so not the worst case scenario for us, but still need some help. And that did not help us whatsoever. There's a Glimmer of Genius. So now we've got 3 copies of Glimmer of Genius. And just this Void Shadow for protection, feeling a little bit vulnerable at this point. Here's a Thraben Inspector. Our opponent's down to 1 card after this Thraben Inspector, so we can counter the Thraben Inspector if we want to. I guess I'm going to do that, just because our opponent can't also drop a Gideon here. Now, they could drop Anissa, which would be lights out, but definitely feeling the pressure. So I'm going to pass back with this Harness Lightning available. Our opponent's forced to crack clues, so maybe there's hope. Lambholt Pacifist, that's going to be able to crew the Heart of Kirin. But we can use the Harness Lightning to take out the Pacifist. This is going to mean we're taking a 6 damage to the face. So dropping all the way down to 10 without any good play for the following turn is not where you want to be. Negate. So if our opponent plays a Planeswalker, now we have a counterspell for a Walker if our opponent were to try to play one. But Westvale Abbey is pretty bad for us here. And looks like our opponent's just going to make a Cleric and maybe just fire up the Heart of Kirin. This is just a bad draw. Doesn't actually happen very often, I will tell you that. I mean, traditionally the deck has good mana, but sometimes, like every deck, it just doesn't come together, and we're seeing it here. Finally, that Aether Hub, but I have a bad feeling that was too little too late. We can now Natural Obsolescence the Heart of Kirin. But just these Glimmers have been sticking to our hand for the entire game. and the Attune uncastable. Just frustrating, really frustrating situation. Because our opponent's no longer relying on casting spells. They've got Westfell Abbey. So that can just churn out these clerics. And we can Glimmer. So sure. I'm going to go to 1 and cast Glimmer of Genius, but you know what? I don't think we have outs. So, sure, I mean, yeah. Yeah, that's going to be the game. Unfortunate there.